Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
I've begun using a really cool service from Aviva IQ, and it's made my life so much easier. My guests love receiving all the important details about their stay exactly when they need it. And I love all the 5-star reviews I'm getting on communication. Check them out at www.avivaiq.com. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the news in the world of Airbnb. And today I have one of my favorite co-hosts, Silvia Li from Hostfully. Silvia, how are you doing?
Good, Jasper. Thank you for having me.
How's everything going in San Francisco?
It's been raining like crazy, which is good because we were in a drought. But now with the rain, I think we're good to go.
Okay, good. Yeah, I heard in San Francisco it rains a lot, doesn't it?
It doesn't rain as much, but this year it's been just crazy. I mean, like literally for the last couple of weeks, it's been raining almost every day. And for instance, in LA, it doesn't rain that much, as you know, but it's been raining like almost every day as well. So people are going crazy because they're not used to it. But I think it's a good thing. We need the water.
Yeah, water is important in California, right?
Totally.
You can have some of ours. In Holland, we have plenty. I'll send over a ship.
That sounds great.
The snow here in Amsterdam has melted. And now it's raining. It was very cold a few weeks ago. It was like way below zero. So it's warming up a bit, but that also means that now the snow has turned into rain, which is not as pretty.
Yeah.
But at least it's not too cold. But let's get into the news of this week. And I wanted to start with an article that was written by Lee Gallagher, who is an editor for Fortune magazine. And this article is about the expectation of Airbnb to top $3 billion in profits by 2020. Do you think they will make that?
To be honest, I mean, after reading the article and learning about the different verticals that they are getting into, I believe so. I mean, with the leadership that they have with Brian Chesky, Joe Gebbia, I think this is something that it's possible as long as they focus and keep delivering a good experience to users.
And there are a few different verticals that they are getting into. I heard they actually wanted to acquire Skyscanner last year at some point. There was rumors about it, but it didn't happen. But $3 billion, that's a lot of money though, compared to what they're making right now. And only 3 years from now. That's quite ambitious, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree about it. And the next article that we're going to discuss is that they've actually only used $300 million of the $3 billion that they raised, which is very little. And I think with that money, they can get to places with that money. But I mean, of course, as we said, it requires a really good execution. And with, I mean, competitors like HomeAway and other companies that have raised a lot of money as well, that's a huge obstacle. But I mean, who knows? It's definitely possible.
But other than the article that is interesting, I think what's also really interesting is there's a video in which the author of the article interviews Brian Chesky. And I thought that the interview is quite interesting to watch. He talks about all the hurdles and the challenges that Airbnb has faced in the past. And looking back, one of the questions that Lee asked Brian Chesky was, what would he have done differently if he were to start over again? And his answer was that he would have kicked off a number of property managers off the platform, because he says that some of these property managers who have lots of apartments, they kind of like gave Airbnb a bit of a bad name. People started talking about illegal hotels and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of took a while before Airbnb recognized this issue, and they took action.
Yeah, I mean, definitely bad rep in an industry that has a lot of haters is definitely something really bad. And I think it makes sense to cut off, folks that just give you bad PR in this case. But it's also interesting that now they do have a really big focus on, property managers that have a lot of listings. I think as they grow, they will still have to face things like that. But I think Brian Chesky knows what he's doing, and with the new acquisitions for, like luxury retreats, which is, in a way, like a huge amount of listings. This is something that will help Airbnb grow as time comes.
Well, now that you mentioned the acquisition of luxury retreats, because you mentioned before that, there's another article that came out where they talk about how Airbnb hasn't spent much of the $3 billion that they raised. They've only spent $300 million, which is quite surprising, because they've grown so much. And, basically what that means is that most of their growth has been organically. But now they've actually acquired a Canadian rival, and they've paid $200 million for the company. It's a company called Luxury Retreats, and it's a company that offers accommodation exceeding $1,000 per night. So it's really a luxury. Well, I guess the name kind of gives it away. Luxury Retreats.
Right, totally. And I think the company started in 1999, has raised around $11 million from VCs, venture investors, and in total they've raised $16 million. So I mean, Airbnb paid $200 million, so that's a pretty good exit, I would say. And I believe that Luxury Retreat CEO is joining Airbnb as the person heading this initiative, and they probably acquired him because of talent, but also because of the listings.
Right, and the article doesn't mention how many listings there are, but I mean, if Airbnb were to pay $200 million, then it must be quite a few listings. But I think you're right; they're probably more interested in the people, the team, so that they can develop Airbnb's own luxury rental business, and also the technology that the company owns that they might want to use.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen.
So, I'm curious, you think they're going to develop a whole new platform for these luxury retreats, or you think they're going to integrate these listings on Airbnb as it is?
I think luxury retreats are interesting because it's like a combination of you going into a vacation rental and you going and staying with an Airbnb. To me, it seems like it will make sense to have a different section for it. Probably it's going to be like part of the platform, but having a different section where you want like a really different experience, where it's more high end and even a little bit more personalized. I think they probably want to have it in a different place because it's more expensive. So it's easier for people to just find it immediately. I think if it's integrated, if you see the price and you're a regular person, like regular user, you probably get intimidated by how much it costs. So in my opinion, it will probably be separate. So what do you think?
I think that makes more sense, yeah. Because the people that would pay over $1,000 a night, they probably are looking for, like you said, a different experience. They might be looking for different services. So I think, for people who are paying $1,000 a night or more, you might want to offer, different concierge services, like a private driver, all that kind of like high-end luxury stuff that you wouldn't necessarily want to offer on, on a listing that that charges like $50 a night or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. With time will tell. We'll have to keep an eye on the Airbnb website to see how they are going to implement this business.
Yeah. Would you see yourself booking one of their like luxury retreats?
Yeah, if you give me a couple $1,000s, I'm more than happy to book something.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, from what I know, a lot of celebrities like Justin Bieber, Kim Kardashian, they basically get Airbnbs that are mansions. So I mean, I can see a lot of these folks that are very wealthy to start using like luxury retreats.
Yeah, that's true. I saw some listings because in my newsletter I always feature a listing, and
Right.
I saw the listing. I can't remember the name. It was a celebrity who actually no, she didn't rent it out. She rented something on Airbnb, and it was something ridiculous, like $10,000 or $20,000 a night or something.
Yeah.
It was a pretty sick place in Aspen, if I remember correctly.
Wow. Yeah, and there will be people that will be willing to pay for it. So
Exactly. There's always people who have too much money.
yep.
Now that we're talking about potential startups for Airbnb to buy, there's rumors that Airbnb is interested in a company called Tilt, which is a company that has technology for group purchases, which could be an interesting addition to the Airbnb platform. Because I've actually had some requests from former guests who said that the amount that they had to pay was too large for one person to cover with their credit card. And so they asked me if they could split it between 4 people. And obviously the answer from me was no, because I have no control as a host over the method of payment that you can use. But I think this is a good move. I really like how Uber implemented this technology. Like with Uber, you can split the bill.
So fair.
Because it's always a bit of a hassle, when you're splitting an Uber with 3 people, and then it's $18, and it's like, it's $6 each. People don't really carry cash anymore, and and now that's kind of been solved. So I think that it's a good move.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in the article it doesn't say how much they're gonna buy it for, but from what I've seen, I mean, Tilt hasn't been doing really well as a company, and if Airbnb is not paying that much for the company, then I think this is a decent, good deal, because one, they're acquiring talent, and they're acquiring the technology, which, took a lot of time and money to build it. So definitely a good strategy.
Yeah, and it says in the article that they are negotiating a deal to buy it for $12 million. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the final price, but that seems like a very low price given the fact that Tilt was last valued by investors at $400 million. Like, I've actually never heard of this company, but $400 million, that's a lot. That's a big valuation.
Yeah, totally. Tilt was backed by Silicon Valley's biggest VCs. It's kind of sad to see it slowly I don't want to use the word dying. But since the day they started, they've had so many competitors in the space, and it's been really hard for them to keep up to date.
Hosts, does it feel like you're spending way too much time responding to questions from your Airbnb guests? Is the fear of a possible bad review keeping you up at night? I recently learned about a really helpful service called Aviva IQ. With Aviva IQ, my workload and worries have reduced dramatically. All I had to do was link my Airbnb listings to Aviva IQ, create my messages, and schedule delivery times. That's it. I can't believe how easy it was to set up. Now I can sit back and relax knowing that my guests receive all the important details on time, every time. Everybody sleeps better. Check them out at www.avivaiq.com.
Well, that 12 million is not going to knock off much of that 2.7 billion that they have in cash. What are some other What are some other places where they could go and invest that money?
I think something they've been testing a lot, which hasn't, they haven't launched anything serious. It's airlines aggregators and, basically competing with places like Expedia, Kayak. That would be interesting. I think part of anyone, like whenever you book a trip, it tends to be very tedious because you start comparing prices and then you can't figure out if you actually want to buy it for that price because you think it's expensive. You have to ask people. I think what Airbnb does really well is delivering an experience that's just very easy to use. So hopefully if they get into that because they want to get into the whole travel space, they improve that experience. And I think I will be willing to just use Airbnb for that because with Expedia and Kayak, it takes me forever to actually make a purchase decision. And maybe Airbnb will ease that and provide an amazing user experience.
Well, that's true. One of the problems I have with some of these aggregators is that when you find a flight but then you can't always book it on the website because the cheaper price sometimes is on a different website. But then when you actually go there and you put in all the details, then it turns out that the flight is actually not available for that price. That's something that happens to me quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it happens to me too because I follow this website called Secret Flying, which gives you like just random deals and like airfares. And then whenever you like go to the deal, it just doesn't work or it doesn't give me an accurate price. So it's kind of tricky, right? Like you don't really trust the system. And I think, having the Airbnb brand will help a lot if they actually go into that.
I think they should acquire a company called Firefox. Have you heard of them?
No, what do they do?
So Firefox is I say it wrong. It's FlightFox. Firefox is a browser.
Yeah, that's what I was like, wait, what?
No, I don't think they're going to acquire Firefox. FlightFox is the one. Mm-hmm. And FlightFox is really cool because when you have a complicated itinerary, instead of trying to figure out what the best flights are and, you want to take into account different connections, how many stops you have, you want to figure out like how much time you have to wait at the airport, all that kind of stuff. And then also the time at which you're flying, like some people don't want to fly at night or some people prefer to fly at night. Well, it's a lot of trouble. It takes forever. And I know because I've been pretty much traveling for about 7 years now. And just recently, I wanted to book a flight from Amsterdam to Florianopolis in Brazil, and then from Florianopolis to Santiago in Chile, and then back to Amsterdam. And it just took me forever to find a cheap flight, and I couldn't find it. I spent hours doing all this research, trying all different dates, trying different routes. Like, for example, I would do Amsterdam to Rio de Janeiro and then book a separate flight from Rio de Janeiro to Florianopolis. All sorts of stuff I tried and I just couldn't figure it out. And eventually I found something from Paris to Florianopolis and then, back to Paris in the end, which is okay because Paris is not so far away. So, I can get there. But seriously, this took me hours and hours. And what I should have done is I should have used FlightFox, because what FlightFox does is you give them the itinerary and there's professional travel bookers who basically their job is to find the cheapest flights. And so what happens is what they do is you give them the cheapest price that you could find, and then they find you something better. And if they do find you something better, then they charge you a fee. But if they don't find something better, then they don't charge you anything. So I think that would be really cool if on Airbnb, if you can just put in, you just give them the places where you want to go.
Yeah.
And, your dates, and that they could, first of all, recommend the flights. And if they could also recommend like good places to stay, because then you kind of like outsource all your travel needs, right? And with the experiences, they could even recommend experiences. Basically, in the end of the day, if you could just go to Airbnb and say, hey, I want to spend 2 weeks in Thailand. Okay, I'm in New York. I want to spend 2 weeks in Thailand. Figure something out. And then they come back with flights. They come back with Airbnb accommodation. They come back with experiences. That would be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds to me like, I guess Flyfox is sort of replacing traditional travel agencies. Because I remember, like, years ago, my parents used to do that, where they would call someone and be like, hey, I need to go to LA, then I need to stop in Japan, and then I need to get to China, and then China back to LA, and LA back to Peru, for instance. And then basically the agents would literally just look for the best routes, for the cheapest routes. And usually it will be cheaper than booking it online. So I can see that working really, really well. And it will save like you and I just hours of time, hours of like just discussing which flights you should take and making a decision. So I definitely see that as a huge, potential like market in general.
Yeah, and then what Airbnb could do, because they're going to be introducing a loyalty program soon. So my suggestion would be that for people who have certain status in the loyalty program, that sort of concierge service, that should be for free. So
yeah.
I'm going to tweet this to Brian Chesky. See if he likes my idea.
That would be great. I think last thing I want to mention related to this is that there's this website that I discovered recently called Airwander. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it.
No, I've never heard of it.
Okay, so
Airwander.
So basically what it does is like, how sometimes when you want to travel, like if I'm going from LA to Amsterdam, I might want to stop in London for 3 days, and I might want to stop in Paris for 4 days. And it's a similar like process where you want to be able to book that, but it's much more expensive, and it takes a lot of time for you to figure out. So basically Airwander does this for you, where you can put the departure place and the destination and add stopovers and add the amount of days that you want to, stay in each city. So, I mean, that's huge to me, because as a person that, in one trip wants to visit different places, this makes it so much easier.
I love it. I'm just checking out the website. It's funny because I've put in Air Wonder with an O. I couldn't find it. I was like, this company doesn't exist. It's Air Wonder with an A.
With an A.
That's really cool, though. I like it. I'm definitely going to check it out. Good find. Another article I want to mention is there's a big apartment management company that is called, I think they're called Aimco. There's an article in TechCrunch, and they are suing Airbnb because they're saying that Airbnb is promoting their users to illegally rent out the units that Aimco is renting to them. So their tenants are illegally using Airbnb, and they're claiming that they are having losses as a result. What do you think about that?
I think, Airbnb has faced very similar things. A lot of these lawsuits where, there are hosts that are actually just renting out their apartments, without their permission. And that has happened a lot of times. But it's very hard to say. It's very hard to blame Airbnb because they're actually not promoting it. Like, they don't know what's happening in this case. And I think on the article, it was quoted like, it is not acceptable to us that Airbnb actively promotes and profits from deliberate breaches of our leases, and does so in utter disregard of the disrespectful and unsafe situations created for our full-time residents and their families. I think in this case, and we discussed this previously, I mean, they are not losing money because at the end of the day, the renters are actually paying money, and they're paying money on time. So, I mean, blaming Airbnb, I don't know if it's a good idea.
Well, I think they're going to have a tough time because there's been similar lawsuits in the past where other online marketplaces have been sued for the behavior of their users. And in every case that I've seen, Amazon is an example, and eBay, I believe, is an example as well. In every case, the judges have ruled in favor of the platform because they're saying that you cannot hold the platform responsible for the behavior of their users, which is in this case, I think it will also, apply. And like you said, it's, I guess they are trying to argue that, because their tenants are using Airbnb, they're causing disturbance to their neighbors who would then, cancel their lease and move somewhere else. I guess that's the only way how I can see how they could be losing money. But I think it's too indirect. It's going to be really hard to even prove that they're losing money because of Airbnb. And then secondly, they also have to make the case that Airbnb is responsible for the behavior of its users, which is just one bridge too far, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, it's surprising. I've never heard of them, but they are actually pretty big. They have like 50,000 properties.
Yeah, they're a big company. That's right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's it for today. So, Silvia, thank you very much for hosting this news episode with me. And I look forward to the next time.
Awesome. Thank you, Jasper. It's been a blast.
And to all the listeners, of course, next week, there will be another episode where we'll be discussing the news. And today it was published on Friday because there's a national holiday in the US on Monday. So that didn't give my editors enough time to get it ready on Thursday. But next week it will be back on Thursday. So I hope to see you then.
Get paid for your pet. 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 Get